tenths. Today we're going to talk about tenths in fractions and decimal form. So right now I have a strip that is divided into tenths. Why is it divided into tenths? Because it's one thing and there are 10 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So then each part would be worth 1/10. And when you add them all together, you get one whole. So your equation would look like 1/10 plus 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 1/10 equals one whole. Now, when you talk about things that are divided into tenths or hundredths or thousands or 10,000s, those words sound familiar. The only difference is I have a TH on the end. You're talking about decimals. Decimals are fractions that are divided into tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, and so on. So there's a special way you write a decimal. The most common place you see a decimal is when you're talking about money. When they're talking about 50 cents, they're really talking about fractions, parts of a whole dollar. So 50 cents means 50 pennies out of 100 pennies. That's what that means. And so a decimal lets you know that a fraction is coming. So when I look at, this is a place value chart. So I just did part of the place value chart. But please understand that when we go over here, we have our hundreds, our thousands, 10,000s, and so on. But when you move to the right, we haven't learned this yet, and now we're talking about it. When you move to the right, you have your ones, and as you go to the right, numbers get smaller. You have a column, that's the decimal column. That's what comes after the ones column, the decimals. And that lets you know that 1 was your last whole number. And as I'm moving, the decimals let me know, oh, every number after this is going to be a fraction or part of a whole. So when I look over here and I see tenths, I see that everything, my whole, is going to be divided into 10 equal parts. Hundredths means one thing is divided into 100 equal parts. And so what does that look like, Miss Thomas? It looks like this fraction strip down here. This is divided into 100 equal parts. So now you can see why 1/100th is smaller than 1/10, because you have to cut the same thing into equal parts. And so I just took a minute to draw. Here's my 6 ones, and forgive this red thing here. Decimals means fractions or parts of whole are coming. The tenths means that one thing is divided into tenths, and I started to draw it, but I have it right here. This is my tenths. This is one thing divided into tenths, and then my hundredths right here. So when we're talking about decimals, we're also talking about equal parts of a whole and dividing things into tenths. So there's a way you would write it. So if I wanted to write 1/10, I would write a decimal 1. Right here I have 1/10. You always need a decimal before it. And if you're not going to have any whole units, it's nice, or it's right to place or mathematically correct to place a 0 before the decimal. So that's 1/10. If you wanted to write 2/10, you would write a 0 first. Decimal 2, that's 2/10. Now it gets a little different. Notice how hundredths is 2 places after the decimal. I'm just going to show you this real quick because we're not really dealing with hundredths today. But if I wanted to write 6/100ths, that's how I would show 6/100ths, because hundredths is 2 places after the decimal. We're going to focus on tenths today, and this is tenths in decimal and fraction form.